What's going on, guys? We are back Sunday drafting a 350 Rotowire online championship. I don't even know what number this is for me. Kind of lost track, so I got to count that up and see where we're at. But we're drafting this afternoon. We are going to be in the 8-hole today. Format is we're at the NFFC, again, Rotowire Online Championship. One quarterback, two running backs, three wide receivers, a flex, and a tight end. It is third round reversal in this format, 12-teamer PPR. And quarterbacks get 6 points a touchdown pass, so they're valued a little bit more than your typical 4-point touchdown league. Let's see. All right, so in the 8-hole, we'll see what comes to us and decide from there how we're going to build it. I pretty much have every type of build that I want in this particular contest. So it's just going to come down to what the draft gives me, what players I want. I might reach for some guys. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Also, in this particular format, again, we're chasing the overall prize, right? It's $250K to first place. You got to get some things right, in this type of format. You got to hit on, a difference maker later in your draft. You really got to avoid the landmines in the first couple of rounds. You got to chase some upside for sure also. Typically, that's how I try to go about it with my teams. All right. Let's see. What are we going to do here? All right. So it's going to be Jefferson or A.J. Brown. I don't have much Jefferson, actually. So I got plenty of A.J. Brown teams. So we're going to go Jefferson this time around. We got to hope that Sam Darnold can be somewhat decent this year. So again, because I do a lot of these leagues here, I'm trying to diversify with my player portfolio. Mix in different guys. You can have like a really successful season. You can make money during the regular season. In this format, you basically get paid out after the regular season for best record or most points in the league. But at the end of the day, like that shootout weeks 15 through 17, again, you could have like a really good team, but what really matters is those final 3 weeks and what players put up like those epic games, right? So we saw it last year. I want to say, like, I remember Amari Cooper put up a silly game during the shootout. You had, I think, T. Higgins, and those guys were kind of kind of bums throughout the year, but they ended up putting up a monster week, and that's what propels teams to the top when you're going for a 3-week sprint and trying to score it. These type of contests. So the way it works is you go into the playoffs with your scoring average for the year. All right. And then those 3 weeks, you just add up the points each week, and the team sitting at the top with the most points wins. So 2 years ago, I remember Mike Evans, he did me in, ended up finishing second in the main event. The team that finished first had Mike Evans. Again, Mike Evans wasn't all that great, 2 years ago, and then get into the shootout, and he put up some crazy game. So that makes all the difference. So that goes back to my thought process in mixing in some guys. I obviously, I like some guys more than others, but you want to have exposure to, different players, because you don't know who the guy is that's going to put up like that huge game that could put you at the top.
You are up.
All right, so I'm going to end up taking Gibbs on this team. I really don't have much exposure at all to him. And again, in these leagues at this point, like, I'm looking for guys that can be true difference makers. And it's a little worrisome with Gibbs. I know Campbell said like everything's going to be fine with him, but still a little worrisome that it's a hammy. It's right before the season. He's got time to heal as long as it's nothing serious, but he also had a hammy in OTAs, I believe. So, try to take a cautious approach with him. But again, in these type of contests, you gotta aim, you gotta shoot for the moon sometimes. And he's the type of guy, he's got the talent to put up those monster weeks when you need him. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Jose. Appreciate you guys joining in and watching the live stream. Also, what we'll do too, besides my team, I'm going to try to look at some teams here in this draft, maybe be a little critical of them. Typically on my live streams, so like in person, I'm always dissecting what other teams are doing in the draft and trying to get in their head and what their thought process is, and how they're building their team. But on my live streams, I typically try not to be too critical of teams, especially if like they're poorly drafted. But I think this time it's Sunday afternoon. We're going to let loose a little bit, and, I'll pick out a couple of teams that, if I don't like the build, I don't like the team in general, and I'll give my thoughts on it. And I'll pick a couple of teams that I think did really well, in my opinion. So we'll talk about it today on the live stream for sure. And again, guys, if you're listening in and you're part of this draft and I pick on you, it's really nothing personal. So I apologize ahead of time. Just doing a live stream and trying to pick it out. A team that I think made some mistakes along the way. And again, my opinion, on the reasons why. So I think it's good for, guys tuning in and trying to learn and not make the same mistakes in their drafts. Yeah, so Trevor, thank you for joining. Yeah, in 2022, that's the team that finished in second place in the primetime main event. And I had James Cook going in that Cincy Buffalo game that didn't get played out. I want to say I was down like 9 points. So, yeah, I would have liked, who knows? Like, it wasn't a given that James Cook was going to get there, but would have liked the game to play out and give myself a shot. Hey, Marty, thanks for joining. Appreciate you. Got some guys in the chat today. I love it. All right, let's see. Where are we going? We got Jefferson and Gibbs to start. All right, listen. We're going to, I'm trying not to overdo it with this kid. He's a rookie, but, I love the talent, and it's going to come down to my guy Daniel Jones in not being total doo-doo this year. I think that offensive line should be improved from last year. Otherwise, if I didn't think that they were improved from last year, I probably would have no neighbors whatsoever, because that offensive line was trash last year. The offense just couldn't do anything because of the pressure that defenses were getting. So that's what it's going to come down to. I've mentioned this in past live streams also about Malik Neighbors. He's kind of polarizing, right? I think a lot of people look at him as, he's talented, but he went to the wrong offense, right? That offense was trash. It's ugly. Offensive line. Daniel Jones sucks. All those things, right? That's the anti, Malik Neighbors argument. And, the guys that are interested in Malik Neighbors look at it as, well, it can't get any worse. And if they are improved, Malik Neighbors is an elite talent, and he's basically the whole offense. So, he should see, crazy amount of targets. I'd probably say that if the offense is competent and can move the ball, Neighbors is probably approaching I think he can approach Puka numbers from last year. And, listen, it was a historic season for Puka. So I'm trying not to compare and say, I'm not, predicting that's what it's going to be. I'm just saying that, I expect him to be, heavily targeted in this offense. Yeah, so Alex, with Team 1 going Pacheco, you know why I don't mind the Pacheco pick, and I get it. Like, wide receivers, are going to get wiped out in this type of format. You got to start 3, so they go off the board pretty quickly. But what's interesting is there's not many McCaffrey Pacheco teams in this format, and the reason why is that usually teams that take McCaffrey, that they're not willing to take Pacheco there in the 1 hole, and Pacheco never makes it back these days in the 3rd round. So again, 3rd round reversal, guys. So at the start of the 3rd round, it goes to Team 12, And Pacheco, his ADP is basically early third round. That's where he's been hanging out. And I think unless something drastic happens, I expect him to be locked in that spot. So that's the reason why I actually don't mind doing something like that, because there is, in this contest, there's not going to be many McCaffrey Pacheco teams. Hey, Ricky, thanks for joining. My feelings on Burrow this year. I think with Burrow, it just comes down to, I have some questions this year with Burrow in that offense. You've got two receivers that are not happy, right? They both want contracts. Higgins signed his franchise tag, but make no mistake, he's not happy. He wants a long-term deal. Chase wants a long-term deal. And you lost your offensive coordinator. That was your OC since you got to Cincy. So, there could be a little bit of, chemistry issues, things like that, with, Burrow, the OC. And, the biggest thing, which, from what it looks like he's healthy, is, that wrist surgery that he had in last year. So, that can be a concern. So those are kind of like the question marks, with Burrow. Oh, Ricky, I can't divulge that, man. That's something that you're gonna have to subscribe to my high stakes package to find that out. See who's on the fade list. All right, James Cook goes, and now what are we looking at? If I had gone AJ Brown, I would have taken Jalen Hurts here. Don't have AJ Brown. Nothing wrong with taking Hurts regardless. But I got a decent amount of Hurts. I think I'm going to change it up and go with a different player here. Let's see. I'm going to go with Zay Flowers. Haven't drafted much of him, and he's an explosive player. And, what I'm looking for, again, is, lightning in a bottle come shootout time. I think he'll be solid, but I'm looking for those big scores, and I think he's capable of getting behind a defense any given week and have one of those 4 for 120 2 touchdown type of games. All right, Team 10 gets his AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts stack. You are welcome, Team 10. I passed on Hurts there for you. Let you build a little Eagle stack. All right. So I got 3 wide with Gibbs. Pretty much, 5th round is wide open. It can be anything. So we'll see, what we decide to do. We're going to have decent options, actually. So I gotta think this through, see what player I want to take, what position I want to take. Definitely think we're going to have some options here. I got a couple of wide receivers I like, but I have pretty decent exposure to them. So I think I'm going to change it up. And it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be receiver here.
You are up.
All right. It's tight end or running back here. I'm not going to go quarterback. It's tight end or running back. Both guys have been trying to get own a little bit more of. We're going to go with this guy. We're going to go with Ken Walker. Wanted to up my shares of Walker, so I think this is a good opportunity. Lately in drafts, he's been going anywhere from like 4th to 5th round with his ADP. I think if you get in a draft with someone that's pretty high on him, they're going to take him in the 4th round. But typically, he sits right around the 5th round. So we're going to start with 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers in the first 5 rounds and go from there. Yeah, so Marty, my plan on the main event last night with taking Pollard and Spears together. Yeah, so I typically don't do that, and I explained my thought process on it. So if you go to the point, go to the replay, the recorded show, and you'll see right when I took Spears, I talked about it in terms of what my thought process was with taking both guys. Typically, if I take a running back or whatever, I just plant my flag, say, hey, for this draft, this particular team, this is the guy I believe in, and I'm not going to go and waste a pick inside the top 9 rounds on a handcuff. Now I'll handcuff my running backs, but I want them to be cheaper. But in that particular case, I gave my reasons why I think that was a good move on my part for that particular team. So yeah, definitely go on Twitter, and you can find it on the I retweeted it, so you can find it either go into my timeline or FTN Fantasy timeline, and you'll be able to see it. All right, so team 1, double tight end, 2 running backs, and a quarterback, 1 wide receiver. So I'm gonna already say that I don't like that. In this format, there's no tight end premium scoring. It's just full same PPR as receivers. So I just don't see the edge in having Kelsey and Kincaid. And now you're locked in with playing Kincaid in your flex. So It does not give you much flexibility throughout the season. If, let's say, you find like a third running back that's a starter for a few weeks, and you want to be able to take advantage of it. You're not gonna feel great about sitting Kincaid, but you're gonna sit him, let's say, for this running back because the running back's just the better play. Now you're sitting your 5th round pick on the bench. I just don't love that from a roster construction standpoint, and I it's just not for me. And then what you're doing too is you're exposing yourself because you have to start 3 wide receivers. You've got to hit on some later guys, and there's a reason why those receivers that go later. It's because they have question marks. The studs and the early, the guys that go earlier for a reason. And of course, like there's always like hidden gems and guys that you can get that end up working out, but you really have to thread the needle to make that work. Lamar Jackson with Jaden Daniels. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I don't like that at all either. Not a super flex league. And, if you're taking Lamar in the 5th round, Jaden Daniels typically goes, you can get him in like the 9th round in this format. So you're now pushing him way up, and really for, no reason. You already have Lamar. So 1 and 2 definitely marching to their own drummer here in the early going.
You are up.
All right, we're going to take, let's just make sure we're not missing anything. Yeah. All right. We're going to take my boy Christian Watson. He's another one that's kind of polarizing, right? Because he has a lot of talent. He's capable of putting up monster weeks, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy. So that's going to be the thing with that pick. But I like the offense. I think that the dude's super explosive. He's already shown that he can put up monster weeks, and that's what I'm looking for in this format. I don't know, man. I was going to slow down with these 350s, but I don't know, these afternoon drafts right now are looking pretty good. I like this craziness that's going on. So I think I might just go ahead and do a bunch of these, matinee drafts. So I'm gonna have to see. I'm gonna have to check the lobby and see what we got for afternoon drafts the rest of the week, and just probably do a bunch of them. Uh, this is fun. All right, so I know who Team Two is. Um, so he was just texting me. Um, so apparently he got distracted by his wife. So I don't know if she told him to go do chores or if something else was happening that he got distracted. But he's blaming it on his wife. But listen, man, what I can say is you taking two quarterbacks there, that's amateur hour, man. You gotta make that work here. We're all professionals. We can't be blaming our wives for taking two quarterbacks in the 5th and 6th round.
Are on deck. You are up.
All right. Let's see. We are gonna go. So where are we going with this? What do we want to do? We got a lot of options here. Damn. What do I want to do here? You know what? Screw it. I'm going to take Green Bay Packers stack. This is probably a round or two early for Jordan Love, but when we got guys in here that think we're drafting a super flex league, we just go ahead and take the guy in case we have a run here at quarterback. I had 3 teams behind me that don't have QB, so there's always the chance that they could have taken a quarterback. Team 6 has Jaden Reed, so that was also a possibility that could happen, where he takes Love maybe in the 8th round and he doesn't get back to us. So just made up I pushed them up. There was some other guys that I could have taken, but I wanted to have the Packers stack in this one. Thank you. And unlike my boy in the 2-hole, my wife just came in the room and she did not distract me because we are professionals here and we make sure that we are 100% concentrating on the draft at all times. All right, let's see here. So let's go in the chat. We got the chat booming. I hear you, Alex. That's funny. Let's see. I'm just trying to catch up on the chat, make sure I don't miss any questions, guys. And again, if I don't answer your question and I missed it, just go ahead and ask it again. Yeah, Ricky. So you got Kittle in an OC at 901 last night, it's, these drafts they're a little bit all over the place, right? You can't really depend on ADP all the time. You can, if you've got a guy that believes in a certain player or whatever, he's going to push him up 2 rounds where, the night before you got him 2 rounds later. It happens, especially now, because I feel like in July and, June, July, early August, I think people are just kind of, drafting a little bit vanilla, following ADP. But as you get closer to the season, guys just want to take their guys, right? And they look at it as like, hey, I'm down to the last few of my drafts, and, I got to start making it count. And they just take the guys that they want to have on their teams. Who else was I considering there with the love pick? I would probably, I don't want to say names just in case the players come back to me or are still on the board and I've got a shot on them. So I'm not going to name the names just yet. And then I'll let you know. But strategy wise here, sorry, I'm on because, just in case these teams here are, listening, and then I throw out a name and then they snipe me. So we're going to keep that on the down low for now. All right, so let's see here.
You are on deck. You are up.
All right, we're going to take out a third running back, Tajay Spears. He's part of a committee. So right off the bat, week one, he's not, the upside is limited, obviously. I think there's going to be some weeks where he'll have standalone value. But, at the end of the day, what you're looking for when you draft Pollard and Spears is, my thought process is you don't wish injury on anyone, but if an injury happens, I think either guy would easily be, top 10, top 8 running back with a full workload. Do I think Jonathan Brooks is worth the wait? Yeah, he's a lottery ticket. I think a lot of people, he's coming off an ACL injury, surgery, and I think for a running back, it's tough that first year back. There's many examples of where guys come back and it's a slow process and they struggle. I think Breece Hall, even at the beginning of the year, he struggled a little bit in everything to get going. But I think he's a different cat, and you can't. I think he's more of like the exception to the rule. He was really good at the end of the last year, but there's a lot of guys that struggle. Um, you know, Javonte Williams was a guy that struggled. There's a bunch of other guys too, but I just can't think of the names right now. So my thought process is, yeah, you're taking Brooks because you're hoping second half of the year he takes off, he takes control of that backfield. Chuba Hubbard and the rest of those guys go away, and it's the Brooks show. You know, I don't know. I think it's it's decent draft capital that you're spending on him to wait on that. And I don't know. I really don't know if it's worth the wait, to be honest. I haven't. He's not really a guy that I'm targeting in drafts. So put it that way. I think Team 2 recovered nicely with Adunze and Javonte Williams. So for, messing up there, taking Daniels by accident, I think, and the other thing too is if you catch it in time and it's, reasonable within a couple of picks, you can definitely hit the admin button and get them to, roll the draft back to change it as long as it's within a reasonable amount of time. But he'll make it work.
You are on deck. You are up.
All right. Decisions. We're just going to keep building our depth with our stable of running backs. And we're going to go Brian Robinson. Put him on the team. Got pretty good depth at running back now on this team. What I don't love about my team right now is that I do feel like they're explosive, don't get me wrong, but Neighbors, Flowers, Watson, those three together on the same team, there's potential for this team to implode where those guys, don't end up working out. So, the one thing I could have done was, gone maybe with, a more safer, solid pick, kind of like a steady Eddie type of guy. But again, super explosive receivers, but there's also a lot of downside there. Yeah, I hope you're right, Ricky, with Flowers, at least for this team. But yeah, he was definitely a guy that I had circled that I don't have too much exposure to, and I wanted to get some teams with Flowers on it. No, I agree, Trevor. If we look at the glass half full, that's sexy upside. with those receivers, no doubt about it. And they can put up numbers real quick on a Sunday afternoon. So I agree with you. I also want to look at it from, the point of view of the glass half empty. And, there's definitely weeks where, I could score sub 100 with this team because of those guys. Yeah, so Jesse, a safer pick than neighbors in that range. Michael Pittman would have been safe. Mike Evans, I treat him the same as neighbors. Like, he's a guy that can be hit and miss for sure. So he's not super safe. I think DJ Moore is solid. DK Metcalf, I think, I don't know about his upside, but I think he's got a floor, a pretty high floor. So, he should be solid. Devontae Smith, even him, in that offense, like, should be solid. But at that point, like, I'm probably taking neighbors, but I'd probably say, like, Pittman, DJ Moore, DK, safer guys in, pretty good offenses. That's the other thing. Again, neighbors, it's the Giants offense, right? It's, Daniel Jones, that offensive line. But if they can gel, I think he's got a lot of upside. All right, let's catch up here. What do we got cooking?
You are on deck.
All right, what do we want to do here? What do we want to do? What do we got for wide receivers?
You are up.
Oh, tight end. We are going to take Brock Bowers. All right, we got our starting lineup from here. And now I would say this is probably a little heavier than I usually draft for running backs at this point. After 10 rounds, I usually don't have these many running backs. So I got pretty good depth there. So my focus probably the rest of the draft is going to be wide receiver. I think that's where the potential weakness could be on the team. If I suffer any injury at the wide receiver position. So we're going to probably focus there. Adams over Neighbors. Well, I didn't have that option. Adams went in the second round. But if you're asking just like in general, Adams, man, he's a pro. I'll give him that, and dude's legit. But he's getting up there in age, and I don't love the quarterbacks there. I'm not that high on O'Connell or Minshew, so I think there's going to be some growing pains. I think there's going to be some games where it's going to be a struggle to get him the ball. I'm okay with Adams, maybe here and there, but he's typically not a guy that I gravitate towards just because of the age. And then if I want to say like, okay, he might have lost a step, but I still think he's good, then the next thing to consider is the offense that he's in. And, his quarterback situation is not a plus. It's a negative. All right. So we're through 10 rounds, guys. Let's take a look at some of the teams. This is a good spot. Usually everyone has kind of like their starting lineup, what the team looks like. So I'll give you my thoughts on top 2 teams and potentially bottom 2 teams in this draft. All right. I'm going to gravitate right to team 1 because I was critical of him in the early going. I will say that he took the right wide receivers with this team. I think, he's got young or semi-young with Ridley and Hollywood. I get it. They're like 28, 27. So he took some upside with the receivers there. So I actually think that he didn't do too bad for starting off running back, tight end, QB, tight end. That's like, again, I was critical of it because that's definitely something you'll never see from me. I'll never have that type of build. But what he's going to need is he's got the Mahomes-Kelsey connection. He needs Kincaid to be really good in the flex. And then those 3 receivers, if he can stream the right guys there, I kind of like it. Like I don't think he ended up that bad with it. So I'll give him credit for that. All right. Let's just play catch up here for a second and see where we're going. The value is not at receiver. And I don't have guys here that I really want. You know what? We're going to double tap quarterback, and we're going to take Caleb Williams. He's another guy I don't have enough exposure to. He's another guy I circled among quarterbacks that I wanted to mix into my portfolio. And I like that combo with, Love and Caleb. And now I've got the quarterback position locked up. And again, receiver was kind of the position that I wanted to focus on, but it kind of got cleaned up a little bit there on the back end. And there was nothing that was sticking out to me that I didn't want to go and take a quarterback, a wide receiver there that I wasn't all that high on. So I'm going to push that back, take the QB. We're good at running back. There was a couple of running backs that I could have taken there. But again, I think at some point you're overdoing it because I think I've got good depth there at running back right now. All right. So again, back to the teams. So team 1, not what I love to do, but I think he did okay. Team 2, I think, recovered from the mishap with the double QB. Team 3 started 4 wide. That was the only team to go 4 wide. So let me just make sure I'm caught up here on these picks. And CD, Debo, Diggs, Cooper, Connor, Swift, Ingram, Brooks, Sutton. Like, I like what Team 3 did. He obviously had a plan. He structured the team well. Brooks, 8th round, again, we talked about it. I think there were some other running backs there that I think have just as much upside, if not more, and they're healthy to start the year. So if there was one pick, I'd be critical of that, but I understand his thought process with having Connor and Swift. Those 2 guys are not a picture of good health. They always seem to get banged up. So the thought maybe, Brooks second half when one of those guys potentially break down. Got Sutton as your number 5. You got Tua, Rico. I'd probably say Team 3, again, team structure, I like it. Let's look. Team 4, got Bruce, Ayuk, DK, Tank, Andrews, Samir, Mostert, Conkey, Chris Samuel. Team 4 is hard, only because, I like Brees, but I don't love the rest of the running backs that were taken. Other than that, that's okay. Team 5. Let's see, Team 5. Team 5 is solid. Team 6. Team 6 is interesting because you end up with a Monra and Laporta, and then you take Burrow in the 7th round. But I think once you build that team, he ended up with Goff, right? He got Goff in the 11th round, and that would be my thought process. Is like, if I had a Monra and then I get Laporta in the 4th round, which I like Laporta there in the 4th round. I'm looking at it as like I'm building a Lions stack. So I'm probably waiting at quarterback and double tapping it in the 10-11 range. So I think I would have passed Burrow. And with this particular team, I think I would have taken a receiver. So I would have, instead of Burrow, I think like Hollywood, a Dunze, upside guy there at receiver as my number 4. You got 2 potential workhorse running backs, edge at tight end. And then the 10-11 turn, I'm probably going Caleb Williams Goff is what I'm doing. I'm getting my Goff, pick, or that's fine. Like, take Ford, and then you get Goff in the 11th, and then in the 12th, I would take another QB. there. So that's the only thing I would have done different there from that team.
You are up.
All right, we're going to take Hawkinson for second half of the year. We got Bowers to start us off, and then Hawkinson as our number 2 tight end. But what this does now is I think Hawkinson, he's coming off ACL. I think tight ends a little bit different than running backs. I don't think, he's going to have a knee brace and everything, but I think they're more of, straight line or, one cut and catch the ball versus running backs. I think it's a little bit tougher with mobility. So I'm taking Hawkinson as like a second half of the year guy as my tight end too. And now I've got QB depth. I've got tight end and some depth. I got running back depth. Now I can focus finally on my wide receivers. So that's the other thing, with the thought process is you don't have to rush or panic into starting to take a bunch of wide receivers. You can address the other positions on your team and make sure that you have it locked up in case of injury, in case, guys struggling and you didn't get it right. You've got, a potential guy on the bench to take over. And then, you focus on the position at some point later in the draft. All right, let's see. We got chat going. I got to try to catch up on these teams, and I'll try to get to your guys' questions. Let's see here.
You are on deck. You are up.
All right, so let's go back to the teams. So team 7, 3 wide, James Cook, Rashad White. That's solid. Team 7 solid there. Team 8, that's us. Team 9. Team 10. Team 11. All right, well, here's the good news. There's no teams really that stick out to me where I'm like, just total trash, dead in the water. There's a few teams, I might like less than others, but I don't think like anything really sticks out to me. Like the one team that was going to stick out to me was Team One, and like I said, I think he did a good job recovering. Um, he's going to need he's going to need receivers to pan out, but um, it's not the end of the world. So I'm going to answer some questions in the chat, and then I'll go back and I'll tell you guys my top two teams, what the two teams that I like the most. All right, let's see. What do we got? Yeah, I agree. I like that, Bowers fell there. I think with him getting nicked up, he's got a little bit of a foot issue. Didn't play last night. Um, that probably has something to do with maybe him dropping here in drafts. So, and we don't know the extent of it. So I get it. It's a little bit of a question mark with him. We are just going to catch up real quick here. Make sure we're good with our picks. All right. Yeah, that's an interesting debate with Lad McConkey and Josh Palmer. Um, some people, don't believe in McConkey, and some people are pro Palmer. I'm of the opinion that that offense, everything about it screams, uh, run heavy offense, play some defense, but they do have Herbert, who's a talented quarterback, so they don't need to be run heavy. But typically that's been the case in like a Greg Roman offense, is that they don't have his offenses usually support one receiver. I don't think historically supports two receivers. So one of those guys is probably not going to be great, or they might not all be great because you just don't know which one is going to be like the go-to guy, right? Um, let's see what else we got. Yeah, so Minshew was named the starter, Trevor. I haven't seen that update right now, but not really surprising. And I really don't know if that's, good or bad uh, necessarily. I think Minshew has shown spurts where, he can be pretty good, but there's also a reason why, he's been basically a career backup, right? So, um, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. But again, like I wasn't really a fan of O'Connell either. So Yeah, Minshew, 100% a top 32 QB in the NFL. Yeah. Um, you know, that's at the bottom half of those quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't know. I think he's definitely a little bit of a gunslinger. I like that mentality, but I don't think he's anything special. Let's see here. You've seen some push. Okay, Jesse. So Jesse says, I've seen some pushback on Walker because of the O-line play being ranked dead last by many. What are your thoughts on him this year? Yeah, so their offensive line um, is not in the top half of the league, that's for sure. It's in the bottom half. As far as ranking dead last, I can think of, of a couple offensive lines that I think are worse than Seattle, but um, I think year to year, the thing with ranking like offensive lines is that um, you need talent on the offensive line, you need strength, and you need chemistry. And I think that if you've got a good O line coach, I think those things can be coached up in the offensive line. Whereas like more of like the skill position um, on a team, it you kind of need talent, and it's hard to hide um, that weakness in the offensive line. Like I believe that those guys up front can be coached up and can improve from year to year. So I would say that it's more of if they can find uh, some chemistry and they'll be improved from last year. And I'm not super concerned with Walker. I mean, I took him there in the fifth round, but I can see the I can see the argument against them with the offensive line. Same goes for Stevenson, right? With New England's offensive line. Um, Going into this season, that's another team that's got question marks. And Stevenson goes around that fifth, sixth round, and you
You
know
are on deck.
it matters. It definitely
You
affects
are up.
the running back if the offensive line is just trash. Look at Saquon Barkley last year with the Giants, in that offensive line. All right. We're on the clock. We've been talking, and I want to make sure that I did not miss anything. Maybe I've missed something. I don't know. Let's see. Ladd versus Palmer. Yeah, again, like I'm a fan of Ladd McConkey. Uh, I am not a fan of Palmer. Um, I look at it as I think Palmer's just a guy. I think McConkey can be good in that offense, but maybe not great. Because again, like I look at it as like what that offense is looking to be, what their identity is looking to be. I don't know if McConkey, like he's got potential to be a little bit of a target hog, because I think he's got the talent to win in coverage. But um, you know, typically that type of that offense, you know, you're not seeing like a huge amount of targets for the number one receiver. So, you know, I would like to mix in McConkey here and there in drafts, but I think someone's always going to take him a little bit earlier than what I'm willing to. Best Jags QB since David Gerard is Minshew. Oh, jeez. Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, you know, you're a Minshew fan, and I apologize for my dislike for Minshew as a top 32 QB. But you know, again, I think you're going to have stretches where Minshew's going to look great, and I think there's going to be times where, you know, Minshew's not going to look good, and you're going to see O'Connell, you know, warming up on the sidelines. I did say earlier that I wanted to concentrate on wide receivers, right? I haven't really done a good job about following up on that. We're gonna take some low end wide receivers later, aren't we? Damn. Again, like at some point during the season, whether bye weeks or injuries, you're gonna need some guys on the bench that are gonna enter your starting lineup. So uh, we need to find a couple of guys here. Also, I got to talk about my two favorite teams in this league. So let me make my pick here and then figure out what two teams I like the most.
You are on deck. You are up.
All right, let's take a look here. So You know, what I like about Team 12, I like that they put the Arizona stack together with Kyler, McBride, and Harrison. I'm gonna say so. This has to do with, in terms of like how I like to build my teams. So it's my biased opinion at the end of the day, and I'm looking at players that I like, dislike when picking the teams, and I'm gonna say that I like I like Team Seven. I would say I like the first half of Team Seven's team. And I think Team Five is interesting to me. I kind of like that. I like the players on Team 10. I like what Team 3 did. So I'd probably say it's those teams. So, in no particular order, I'm going to say Team 10, Team 7, Team 5, and Team 3. Those are probably the teams that I like the most in this draft. And again, it's just biased opinion.
You are on deck.
All right, so the question is on Rashee Rice.
You are up.
What are we doing here? Let's take a look. We'll mix in a kicker. That's fine. Yeah, so with Rashee Rice and him, uh, yeah, he was playing GTA in real life, but it's looking like no suspension. So the question is, do I think that his ADP has properly corrected? Um, he's going. So in my main event last night, he went in the third round, and he's basically been locked into early fourth round. That's a good question because, like, that is one guy right now that I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with him. And I guess based on like me not, so like if I'm there in the early fourth round, am I clicking on Rice? I don't know. So that answer probably tells you that I think maybe his ADP is a little bit high, that maybe it overcorrected a little bit. And that's because I think that, they have weapons, more weapons on that team than what they've had in the past. So I don't think, like, I think Rice is a good player. I think he's in a great offense, but yeah, I guess that's my opinion. I don't want to get off cheap by not giving you, a solid opinion on it, but I'm not ready to take a stance and say like I'm going to fade him or anything. But at the same time, I'm not bullish on him in the third, fourth round. Subject to change, but I think with the weapons that Mahomes has and how they spread the ball, I think maybe it's a little high for Rice. So that's my opinion. Zach Moss versus Chase Brown. I mean, you know, if whether you follow me on Twitter or you subscribe to me or whatever, or you've chatted with me, you know that I'm a Chase Brown guy. I'm not a Zach Moss guy. I think that he can be a solid pro running back, but you know, I'm always going to gravitate towards the, you know, explosive young kid. You know, Moss has been in the league for a few years, you know, never, you know, won a starting gig. You know, he started a few games last year. That was due to injury with Taylor. And he, you know, he looked pretty good. I give him credit. Like he looked better than what I think he is. But I also think that he regressed a little bit as the season, you know, went on. I just don't believe in that he's all that talented. So I'm always going to gravitate towards the Chase Brown type of guy. Yeah, so Bengals O lineman said take Chase Brown in his fantasy draft. And yeah, you know, it's a little bit of, you know, hype and everything. You got to kind of take that with tongue in cheek sometimes with players. It's his teammate and everything, but he could have talked, you know, he could have hyped up Zach Moss. He didn't. He was hyping up Chase Brown. So yeah, you know, it's fun, you know, to hear when, you know, players talk highly of a teammate and kind of hype them up. Yeah, Chase Brown's sample size is small. You know, you're drafting him because you're betting on the come, right? You're not drafting him based on, you know, his you know, history or you know, his body of work in the NFL. You know, he was a rookie last year. He got off to a slow start because he was injured. Sometime in the preseason, right before the season started, I want to say he had some type of ankle sprain. So he wasn't really part of the rotation. We're on the clock. Let's see. What are we doing? All right. So he wasn't part of the rotation. And when he finally did, you know, get healthy and get a chance, I think in a small sample size, he showed how explosive he can be. And, you know, they let Mixon go and they brought in Zach Moss on a very modest contract, nothing special. So I look at it as, you know, they're going to give him every opportunity to succeed. And I also think that if he's the one getting the passing down work, we'll see if that changes. You know, it could change, but I think it's interesting that, you know, he stayed in there with the offense in the preseason, and they didn't mix in Travion Williams on third down. It was Chase Brown in there. That kind of tells me that they trust him in the passing game, which can be huge because look at what Mixon did, you know, last year and you know, how many balls he's caught, you know, through the years when he was with Cincy. So yeah, I mean, that's my argument for, you know, why you take Chase Brown over Zach Moss. Ray, who would you take instead of Adams? Devontae Adams, is that you saying for so just so I know exactly, you know, what you're asking, are you saying like if I'm team 7 that took Devontae Adams in the second round if I was Team 7, what would I do instead of Adams? Just let me know if that's the case, because if it is, I'm probably taking a guy like Olave, young wide receiver, a lot of talent that I think, he's got, better years ahead. So I'm probably taking a guy like that. Again, I'm well aware that receivers can have really good years going into their 30s, but I tend to, I try to be careful with not having overexposure to those kind of receivers. So, those kind of guys that stick out to me would be like that have been really good throughout their career, right? But, they're entering the wrong side of 30. I would say Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, Keenan Allen, Tyreek, I think, is 30, but Tyreek, I think, is a different animal. I haven't really noticed anything with him slowing down. But those would be the guys that go early in drafts that, they're really good. They've got a brand name, right? But you also want to be careful with being overexposed to those guys, because they can see a decline, where things, they start breaking down a little bit. So, that's my thoughts on, as far as drafting older wide receivers.
You are up.
Thank you, Ricky. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining in and watching. Thank you for being active in the chat. A lot of good questions and stuff. So you guys have been great. Had a decent turnout today. This was a fun draft. And yeah, so again, look for me doing more of these live streams in the afternoon. I believe NFFC is going to have a lot more scheduled during the week, not just the weekends. So I'm going to be interested in getting in these afternoon ones. So I might live stream a few more. And then again, if you're interested, check out my my stuff, my high stakes package over at FTN Fantasy. All right, let's see. We got last pick. We got 2 QBs. We got 2 tight ends. We got our defense and our kicker. So running back or wide receiver, we got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We got 7 wide receivers. All right, guys. So what we're going to do is I'll leave the board up for a little bit, let the draft finish. But you know, we're at the end of the draft, pretty boring, and I'm gonna go ahead and close out. But again, I'll leave the board up. You guys can kind of take a look at the last few picks and review it. Again, thanks for joining, guys. I appreciate it.